start. We have some other people are joining. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mark. It's good evening at Mark. It's 9 p.m. Mark is based in US. So I would like to welcome you, colleagues, WCPA members, colleagues in the protected areas in Lebanon and the region, some research professors working in the research in the protected areas in the whole Mediterranean region. David joined us from Malaga University, from Spain, from Iraq, from the Gulf. You are most welcome, all of you. As you know, this is our third webinar as part of the WCPA regional activities. We started with a webinar related to OECM. The other one was related to green list, and Mark is our expert in green list and OECM. But today is our topic to talk more about PARCS. PARCS is the International Journal on Protected Areas and Conservation. It's well known, an important scientific journal published by IUCN since a very long time ago, aiming to improve the management of protected areas, share experience among the global network of protected areas. So our webinar for today is 1 hour webinar. I will start in a little introduction about IUCN and WCPA, and for sure I can share the presentation later on with you. My colleague Kamal Abu Asi, who is the manager of the BIOCONNECT project, EU-funded project, working on connectivity between protected areas in Lebanon, and OECM is a core activity in the BIOCONNECT project, as well as to be aligned with IUCN work and WCPA work in the region. In the BIOCONNECT, we created 4 working groups, and all of you are invited to join those working groups, which is in a while, my colleague Kamal will explain a little bit more about the importance and the aim of those working groups. After Mark Hopkins, thank you, Mark, for your time. The editor of the PARCS journal will talk a little bit more about the PARCS, the journal, and we have a very great news about the ranking of the journal in comparison with other similar journals worldwide. So I will keep all these details for Mark to talk about it. At the beginning, I will start very quickly with a little introduction about WCPA and IUCN. As we know, IUCN is the largest union working on conservation, mainly protected areas. There is more than 1,400 worldwide. All these numbers are posted on the IUCN website. The members are international NGOs, national NGOs, states, government agencies, and indigenous people organizations. And for sure, WCPA is one of the 7 commissions that running under the IUCN umbrella. WCPA is the specialized commission on protected areas, aiming to improve the management of the protected areas and enhancing the communication between the protected areas and finding scientific solutions for a better, more effective management of protected areas. And now there is a big focus on OECM, which is the other effective area-based conservation measures. WCPA change. I will share this presentation for you. You can have a deeper look on that, and I encourage you to have a look on the WCPA annual report, because really with the support of everyone, including Mark, the WCPA steering committee and secretariat, were able to develop a nice annual report, including a lot of information related of what's ongoing under the WCPA, and as well as related organigram and all that stuff is included in the annual report. For sure, the organigram of WCPA, we have different task forces, we have specialist groups, we have special projects, different teams, different regions, all together working for a better network of protected areas. Here we have 17 specialist groups. All of you are invited to join WCPA, to be member in WCPA, as well as to join the different specialist groups and the different task forces under WCPA. All this work running worldwide on voluntary basis, aiming to improve and to enhance the management of protected areas. Those are the WCPA members. When we say WCPA, who is not so familiar, it is the World Commission on Protected Area. This is our region called North Africa, West Asia, and Middle East. We have 104 members. This number is quite modest. We can improve this member, because I'm sure we have many participants today are not members of WCPA. I encourage everyone to join and to apply for the WCPA membership. So many publications related to what I mentioned, effective management of the protected areas, equity and governance. So you can find all these publications and reports and guidelines on WCPA website, which is part of the IUCN website. Here, I encourage everyone to have a look and to read the WCPA annual report, because it is very comprehensive report, combine all what is needed about WCPA work in the whole world. And lately, WCPA Steering Committee produced IUCN WCPA membership guide. So that little guide, it's not so long guide, can support and help you to know more how to engage WCPA and what you can do and how to join the different groups and the different task forces at the WCPA. So I will stop here. I encourage you to visit the website as well as to have a look to the annual report. On the regional level, we have the regional action plan. We have many focal points, which is distributed in the whole region. We worked hard with the focus groups to put together some actions to improve the management of protected areas in the region and to be aligned with the global strategy of WCPA and the global action plan of IUCN, what we call it the One Program. So all of you are invited to join WCPA as well as to be involved in the work of WCPA in the region and in the globe. So to be on time, I will move directly to my colleague Kamal Abuasi, the manager of the BIOCONNECT project, to talk very quickly in 10 minutes about the importance of this project and the different working groups and how can we be involved in this project. And then I will move to our main presentation in this webinar to Dr. Professor Mark Hopkins to talk more about the PARC journal. And at the end, we will have 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. Come on, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining and attending this webinar. I will try to be quick in the introducing the BIOCONNECT project, which is a very important project implemented and funded by the European Union, EU delegation, and implemented in Lebanon. BIOCONNECT, we gave this name because we selected, the main objective is to enhance the management of sites and work on the connectivity and linking the protected areas and thinking of potential important areas in relation to biodiversity and the ecosystem in general. So BIOCONNECT is a project started in February 2022. We started this project around 18 months ago. And the first year was a little bit preparation of the collaboration among the partners. I will present the partnership and the area of this project. So this is the title of the project. If you can see it now, it is targeting the southern part of Lebanon, involving the protected areas and some partners working in the environmental sector. The main vision of BIOCONNECT is to enhance the management of sites and work on the landscape connectivity between these sites. In general, BIOCONNECT mission, the main points related to BIOCONNECT are to ensure the resilience, expand and work on the management or effective management inside the protected areas, work on the connectivity through OECMs, through corridors, through important forests or sites in the project, in the action area, as well improve the status of local livelihood near the protected areas and work on the awareness and building the capacity of the administration and the management teams of these sites. And of course, work on the knowledge in relation to biodiversity and conservation in the area. This map here is showing some spots we are working directly on it. We have seven HEMAs. We have 4 protected areas, and we have many sites important and working to be declared as to have a classification such as Geopark or OECMs or the other. So mainly the BIOCONNECT is targeting Shuk Biosphere Reserve, the Jazin area, the Mount Hermon protected area, which is declared in 2022, and we are working on the management of this protected area. The Tier Coast Marine protected area, 7 HEMAs, 2 in Matan, 2 in the West Bekaa, and 3 in the south. Partnerships, the partners of this project are the Association for Community and Environment, ACE, the Association for the Development of Rural Capacities, ADR. They are mainly working to support the Tier Coast Nature Reserve. The Society for the Protection of Nature in Lebanon, SPNL, working on 7 HEMAs, and Ashok Cedar Society working on Shuk Biosphere Reserve, Mount Hermon Reserve, and in the component of the connectivity and identification of important sites or OECMs. BIOCONNECT has 2 main general objectives. The first one is management, and this objective would have 4 specific objectives: the monitoring and evaluation of biodiversity, the effective management of sites, the abating of biodiversity pressure, and the enforcement of sites. The second general objective is expand conservation. We're talking about identification and creation of new protected areas or important sites, ensure the good management or the plan for the management of these new sites, and work on the landscape connectivity between the project in the project. In general, the highlight of this project is has the innovation component, the management component, the declaration of new sites, the management of existing protected areas and the new ones, enhancing the management of HIMAs and the role of HIMAs in the protection of biodiversity and nature conservation, as well protection of biodiversity in general at the national level. And the cross-cutting component is the connectivity through the landscape. After the end of the first year, the partners and the stakeholders or the experts of BIOCONNECT, we agreed to set up several working groups because we need to ensure the sustainability and the linking BIOCONNECT to other actions or interventions in Lebanon, and to ensure and guarantee the continuation after the end of the project. So we agreed to have 4 working groups. The first one is the monitoring of biodiversity and trying to evaluate the status and work on the enhancement of it. The second one is management. The third one is connectivity. And the cross-cutting one is the communication. In brief, the first monitoring and evaluation working group aim is to develop and implement effective monitoring protocols and identifying key biodiversity features, because we need to measure the impact of this project and compare it between the beginning of this action and the end. So we need to ensure that we are enhancing and ameliorating the status of biodiversity and minimizing the pressure of the key biodiversity features, including several activities. I'll just brief some of the activities, like assessing the status of the current biodiversity, agree on some key biodiversity to monitor during the project, develop best practices of biodiversity inventory using non-destructive methods, etc., and select some species to monitor to measure its impact. The second working group is site management. In the site management, the main objective is to share the good experiences between protected areas and transfer the know-how between protected areas, the successful protected areas and management other sites, as well as work on the building of capacity for the protected areas team, including management, patrolling, research, and the other programs. So in this working group, we have several activities directly linked to the management, such as leading some of the protected areas to apply for the green list, declare some geoparks, one of the first geoparks in the country, try to include the biodiversity conservation in the action or the activities of the protected areas, enhance the staff skills through capacity building and training, like develop some management plan of some sites, and identification of how to manage these sites after the project. So the third working group is the connectivity. Here we spoke about OECMs, we spoke about ecological corridors, we spoke about the importance of connecting protected areas between the protected areas and ensure the resilience of the biodiversity and the ecosystem. Here we have some expertise working on the identification of these sites and trying to find solution of protecting the habitat or the biodiversity in the OECMs or the potential new protected areas where we will be able to declare these protected areas. As the fourth working group, which is the communication, we have 2 main categories: the internal communication between the project partners, between the experts, between the stakeholders of BIOCONNECT, and the working group is a very important tool in the communication through the project and after it. And this working group will continue after the project, and I think it will be a tool to connect several project intervention in the country and plan for the coming proposals and the projects, As well, the external communication is to expand the conservation and try to transfer the experience connect to other regions in Lebanon and to disseminate the impact of this project at the national level, mainly the northern part of the country and maybe outside Lebanon. So this is in general a brief about the working group, and the members of working groups are not only the project team. We have this working group is open to receive anyone who is interested and giving added value or benefiting from this working group to be able to continue and expand the conservation and reach more results during after the project. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kamal. I think BIOCONNECT is very related to what's going on worldwide, and WCPA is leading this momentum. Today we have our colleague Lara Smeha from the Ministry of Environment in Lebanon. We are working very closely to the ministry to highlight the importance of OECM and try to organize the OECM in Lebanon and find the mechanism how to announce OECM in Lebanon. Hopefully, that will be a main result of BIOCONNECT project, and WCPA main objectives in this period of time is to help countries in OECM announcement and assessment and so, thank you, Kamal, for this. Hopefully, you will be able to join the different working groups at the BIOCONNECT project. Those will support the different focus group and thematic group that WCPA is promoting and supporting for better effective management of protected areas in the region and in the whole world. So now we move directly to Professor Mark Hopkins. Mark is Emeritus Professor at the University of Mark has a very long experience in supporting and doing research in protected areas, supporting monitoring and evaluation in protected areas. Mark is one of the leaders who initiated the Green List as a tool to improve the effective management of protected areas, and for sure has an important role in OECM, organizing OECM, developing guidelines related to OECM. And the most important, he's the main editor of the PARTS journal, which is our topic for today. I will not go more talking about Mark's long experience and expertise. I will give the floor directly to Mark to move on and to start with the presentation and to open a discussion between all of us, really to use this half hour with Mark, who has a very, very, very long experience in protected areas management. So, Mark, go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much, Nizar, and thank you everyone for joining. I might start first by recognizing the traditional owners of the area where I'm based here in Brisbane, the Yagara people. And also I'd like to just mention that I was very fortunate a couple of years ago to visit Lebanon when Nizar organized a meeting of the WCPA steering committee at El Shuf. Had a wonderful time there. We really enjoyed our meeting, and it was great for me to go there. The only other part of the region I've visited previously was in Jordan, so I was very pleased to do that. But what I've been asked to talk about today is the Parks Journal. Parks is the journal of the World Commission on Protected Areas. Parks was born many years ago in about 1979, and for the first couple of decades of its life, it was published as a non-peer-reviewed sort of theme-based journal organised by the IUCN staff in Switzerland. In the about 2006, it ceased publishing for a while, but then in 2012, it was reborn as a peer-reviewed open access journal. And it's published by the Commission, but it's, to a sense, independent of IUCN. So the decisions about publication are taken by the journal editor, the managing editor, who's me at the moment, and by an advisory board. So the journal has a series of aims to really spread and share global knowledge and best practice relating to protected area management, and to promote understanding of the values and benefits of protected areas and conservation. It's an unusual academic journal in that we really try very hard to focus on the applied management of nature conservation, while still maintaining high academic standards. In terms of the sorts of papers that we publish, we try to focus on this sharing of knowledge and on the application of knowledge to improve management. So we tend not to publish very theoretical studies, things like descriptions of new species or just attributes of a protected area that don't have implications for how we might manage these sites. So it is a very applied journal in its focus. It's unusual in a number of ways. It is peer-reviewed and it's open access, but we do not have any author charges. The so-called author processing charges that most open access journals charge. We only publish 2 issues a year in May and November, and occasionally we publish special issues around a topic that are organised outside of the normal 2 issues. So we've done one on OECMs, and we did one a couple of years ago on the impact of COVID-19 on protected areas. But the special issues are unusual and organised around a theme. Each of the 2 issues we publish have around about, or have had about 8 to 10 papers. So we're publishing around about 20 papers per year. Although the issue that I'm currently working on for November this year is likely to have 16 or 17 papers. So it's growing. And I'll talk a little bit about why that might be later. To help me in this task, I use a group of handling editors who manage the peer review of papers. And usually these handling editors would manage 2 or 3 papers a year. But I should say I'm always looking for more handling editors. So if any of you in the region have experience as academic authors and are interested in helping to manage papers, we certainly welcome that. As mentioned, I'm managing a larger number of papers. In terms of some of the things that people might be interested in, so each year around about probably a third of the papers that go to peer review don't end up being published. So we would maybe recommend to the authors things that they could do to undertake a major review, or where it might be more appropriate to publish it somewhere else. But once you get into peer review, the acceptance rate is quite high compared to many other academic, more mainstream journals. The other thing that's unusual is that the editors work very frequently with authors to get papers up to a standard to publish. People who wouldn't normally publish, people who wouldn't normally publish in peer-reviewed journals, who may be protected area managers or practitioners, or people whose first language is not English, and who would struggle to get into the main peer-reviewed English literature. We work very hard with those authors to help them get published if they have something that's worth sharing, that's worth saying. And that's very unusual for a journal. Normally, they expect you to deliver a very high quality manuscript, and if you don't, then you'll just be rejected. But we work hard to allow people who wouldn't normally be able to publish to become authors. In addition to the papers that go to peer review, I would normally reject about 20 papers a year without going to peer review. So these are papers that are unlikely to make it through a peer review process, or may be inappropriate for the journal. They might be a theoretical study. They might be something which is of purely local interest without any broader implications. So if you are thinking of submitting to the journal, think about whether a global audience would be interested in and could learn from what you have to say. Make sure that you draw out those broader messages that will be of interest to a global audience. We publish two sorts of papers. The main papers are full peer-reviewed papers. So these would be sent to at least 2 peer reviewers. If they disagree, or if there's an issue, we may send it to a third. And these papers are normally a maximum of 5,000 words. And that includes the abstract and the references. So I often have to write back to authors when they have submitted a manuscript that might be 8,000 words long or 9,000 words, and tell them before the paper can be considered, it has to be reduced in length to close to 5,000 words. So make sure that you're not sending in very long papers, because they won't be accepted. But you may be asked to reduce them. Better if you do that yourself early. Papers that are reviewing an issue or a policy discussion may be longer. So if you're dealing with a broad issue and looking at the results across a number of studies, then we accept papers up to 6,500 or even 7,000 words, but that's the exception. Papers can also be accompanied by supplementary online material. So this is material that would help someone who's reading the paper, but it's not integral to understanding what the paper has to say. And this material is provided on the journal website, but it's not part of the journal itself. It's associated with your paper, and people can access it online, but it's not integrated into the paper. I'll show you that online in a minute. We also publish short communications. These are normally about 3,000 words long, and these are peer-reviewed, but they're peer-reviewed within the editorial board, just by 2 members of the editorial board, and that makes it a little easier for us to get the reviews in. So these are briefer notes, not a full research paper, but they might raise an issue or perhaps provide a perspective on an issue that would be of interest to people. So these are the 2 types of papers that we publish. And I will show you on the website in a minute, we have author guidelines that provide the detail of how to prepare your paper, how to do the referencing, the journal style, and give you guidance on the sorts of papers that we're looking for. When we started to publish the journal as a peer-reviewed journal in 2012, we didn't get a lot of papers from people perhaps within academic institutions where it's important for them that the journal where they publish has international standing. And it took a couple of years of publishing peer-reviewed articles before we were able to get the journal indexed in one of the main bibliographic indexing systems, which is called Scopus. And we had to show that it was a credible journal, that it was well regarded, that it was being used. And so it took we started that process in about 2016. And by 2018, it had been accepted by Scopus. And they started including the journal articles, the journal papers in their Scopus bibliographic database. And the journal has risen pretty rapidly through the ranks in Scopus. So they have what they call the Scopus Site Score, which is a measure of how much the journal is cited by other authors. So papers in the journal are being cited by other people. And our site score, which started at 0.3, has now risen to 5.3. And the journal, which was at the bottom of the rank, is now ranked number 38 out of 196 journals in nature and landscape conservation, which puts it in the top 20% of journals in its field. So we've gone from the bottom of the pack to the top 20% in just 5 years. To give you some comparison of others, Conservation Letters, which is one of the best conservation journals in the world, it's ranked 16. We're ranked 5.3. Sorry, its site score is 16. It's ranked 3rd. I'll come back to the open access later. So we're about 1/3 of the way up. That's ranked number 3. Biodiversity and Conservation, another very well-regarded journal, has a site score of 6.5 and is ranked just ahead of us at 29. Here is Parks, number 38 out of nearly 200. Oryx, which is another, journal where many people publish, is ranked now below Parks. It's ranked 40th. Environmental Conservation, with a site score of 4.8, is ranked 45th. And Nature Conservation is ranked 52nd. The ones in red are the open access journals. These are the ones where the papers are freely available for anyone to download without having to pay to subscribe to the journal. The way in which most journals work is that are open access journals is that they charge you as the author. If you submit a paper and your paper is accepted, you have to pay to have it published. So for conservation letters, if your paper is accepted, you will pay just over $3,000 to have that paper published. Parks, we don't charge at all. Oryx charges just under $3,000, and nature conservation just under €1,000. So that's a big difference in terms of accessibility, and that's why people like managers of parks, why people who aren't in a well-funded institution can actually get their papers published in parks if they meet the standard. Of all the open access journals in that field of nature and landscape conservation, Parks is ranked 4th of all the open access journals, and is the only one that I'm aware of that doesn't charge author fees. We've also been listed in a thing called DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. The directory, to get listed in the directory, you have to be able to prove that you are a credible journal. There are many open access journals that will publish your paper pretty much regardless of its quality, as long as you pay them. And if you're in an academic institution, you probably get lots of emails from journals with credible sounding titles, promising to publish your paper, within a few weeks, which they will do if you pay for it, but they have no credibility. So all of the open access journals that are academically credible are listed in the DOAJ. And we had to submit a lot of information to prove we were a credible journal to get listed. In terms of where we publish from, this is just a snapshot of the last 4 years. So in the last 4 years, we published papers from a total of 522 authors across 62 countries. But many of the papers have got multiple authors. We didn't publish 522 papers. We're publishing about 20 to 30 papers a year, sometimes a bit more with the special issues. And you can see there is a predominance of authors from the usual suspect countries, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, quite a lot from India, quite a lot from Central and South America, not so many from Africa, but a fair few, particularly from South Africa. From your region, we have papers, authors from Egypt, Palestine, and Lebanon, and we would certainly like to expand that authorship. So I'm hoping that out of this webinar, we might encourage some of you to consider submitting your papers to Parks. We'd obviously also like to improve our authorship across Africa and in areas of Central Europe and across here in Eurasia. Similarly, areas in the Pacific and parts of Asia, we would encourage more authors. But we are proud of the fact that we have a pretty broad authorship, and we really work hard to help authors from these countries who wouldn't normally publish in the mainstream English language journals. What I'm going to do now is just jump to the website. So it's published online. We occasionally produce printed copies, but it's primarily an online journal. The journal address is parksjournal.com. And so this will tell you about, if this was going to go through to, you can see the latest issues here. This is the most recent one that's published. You can download the full issue, or you can see the individual papers that that are published. So here's one from Pakistan, abroad, one from Latin America, one from Palestine, one on the Arctic, a general one about the Kunming, Montreal. Sorry, that's part of the Arctic paper, and one on adaptive management. And you can see here also where the supplementary material is. So if we look at this paper, this is the main paper. And one of the unusual things about the journal is we use a lot of photographs. So we ask you to provide photos. So as well as maps and tables, the normal things, we illustrate all our articles with photos. But we can also here include supplementary online material. So this was based on a community questionnaire, and this is available and can be downloaded as in this case, a document file if you want. So you can put a lot of additional material to support your paper as supplementary online material. You can also, if we go back here to issues, so that was the current issue. We've got all of the back issues here. So here are all of the peer-reviewed issues, and you can download and look at all of the papers going back to 2012. But we've also scanned and put in all of the issues that we could get back to 1991. And these were the thematic issues. So, for example, this one on community conserved areas. So I would also say the Parks Journal website is a resource if you're looking at for material, published material around parks. You can go through all of the years of the journal back to the 1980s and see the papers that are there. There's information for authors. So the guidelines, the aims and objectives, and information about peer review and how to prepare your paper, the style of referencing and so on is all available on the website. So that will help you prepare papers. And you can also get information about, for example, who is on the editorial board, and information about ethics and copyright. The journal, again, is unusual in that the authors retain all copyright in their material. So the journal doesn't assume copyright. The other thing that you can do is, if you want to be advised of new issues when they're published, you can enter your email here and subscribe, and you'll be sent an update when an issue is published. So use the website. You can search for papers by topic, and as I said, you can get a guidance there for authors. Just to go back, this is also, I'll share this later. This will take you through to the journal website. Just a couple of things just to finish, and then I'll take some questions. So in terms of the people you might interact with, there's the managing editor who will take the final decisions. As I said, that's me at the moment, although I'm hoping there'll be a new managing editor from next year. And I'll be the person that deals with you in once a paper's accepted in terms of the final work on it. But I will also, if you submitted a paper, I will allocate it to a handling editor, and the handling editor is the person who will deal with you, who will identify peer reviewers, who will manage the peer review process, and then go through any revisions that are needed to get the paper accepted. We also have a journal proofreader who does the final proofreading, and the handling editor works with them to finalise the paper. Just a couple of things. we run parks on the smell of an oily rag, if that makes sense to you. So we have a very limited budget. The only things, almost all of the work is voluntary. We pay our proofreader. We're now paying someone to typeset. I was doing that. And we pay some of the expenses to maintain the website. But it means, and that's why we don't have to charge author charges, because the WCPA covers these costs, but we keep the costs very low, and that means that we're able to publish papers without charging you. But it also limits our capacity, and we're currently, as I said, we've got 16 or 17 papers in the coming issue, where that's growing as the standard, as the reputation of the journal grows. We're getting more submissions, and so we're going to have to decide, do we add another issue? How do we build capacity? Or if we're going to keep it free, can we keep it, at this current level? So I'll stop sharing that there, and I'm very happy to take questions, and either if people want to ask, or if you want to put them in the chat, I can look at them there. But I'll hand it back to you, Nizar, to handle this discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Very, very clear. In our colleagues that they are with us today, you have professors, researchers in protected areas. We have students as well. So you were very clear to encourage everyone to submit papers to parks, as well as we have well-experienced professors within the group. Your invitation for who has the capacities to join the parks team to help in editing and being part of the editorial team. I stress on that. I encourage everyone who has the capacities really to be in contact with Mark, and I'm ready to support in that, to be involved. We have many research is ongoing, Mark, in our protected areas in the region. We have different topics are tackled through the different researchers. My first question, if we have a research related to agriculture within protected areas, which is now promoting sustainable agriculture, are such manuscripts are fitting with parks, or it should be focused totally on conservation and effective management of protected areas?
No, as long as the paper is dealing with, we would cover all categories of protected areas, so sustainable use areas, category 5 and 6, as long as the paper was relevant and related to the issue of the protected area status and its values. So if it was purely about agricultural productivity and it didn't have relevance to the conservation of the values of the reserve, then it would be unlikely to be accepted. But we publish many papers about multiple use reserves, about OECMs, about sustainable use. So absolutely they would be relevant.
As well, we have the opportunity of the short communications that you mentioned.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe not fully scientific papers, but it can help in sharing this experience among the different actors in the global network of protected areas.
And I would say that even the peer-reviewed papers, they don't need to be scientific in the sense that they're based on a set of experiments that you've done and a hypothesis you've tested. They can be about policy, they can be about experiences in applying management tools, they can be about addressing threats to protected areas. they can come very much from a management perspective. So they do need to be based on evidence, but evidence is not necessarily something that's collected just through what you might call traditional science. We would also include traditional knowledge, experiential knowledge of managers. What I would do is encourage people to look at, go back and browse through the last 3 or 4 years of the journal and look at the range of papers that have been published. And that will tell you a lot about the sort of things that we do publish.
That's great. Let's have a couple of questions. If you have any additional clarification from Mark, please go ahead. Let's open our mic and ask.
Or put your questions in the chat if you like.
We have a raised hand. Lara, please go ahead. Open your mic. Our colleague Lara Samaha, the head of the Ecosystem Management Department at the Ministry of Environment.
Thank you very much for this very useful workshop, and it was really a very useful presentation also. I want to ask, is it possible to post an article about, let's say, the history of protected areas in Lebanon or nature reserve, how it evolved, how it started, etc.? Is it a topic?
Yes, that is. I would suggest if you were doing that you not only discuss the history, but think about what have been the implications of that history for the country going forward in terms of meeting your conservation objectives. So has it created a particular type of protected area system that either enables or constrains conservation? I think thinking about what's its relevant for now would be important. We did in the last issue publish a paper about the history of protected areas in Latin America and around the role that a number of people played in growing the protected area system. But it was interesting in that it also talked about, well, what were the things that enabled the protected area system to develop so that it was relevant for the future. So always try to think about how will this be of interest to someone in Europe or Africa or Australia who's reading this paper.
Perfect. Yara Al-Shammas from SPNL, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, from what I gathered, it seems like the articles don't really have to follow the traditional structure of introduction, material, and methods. Is that correct?
No, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so some do, but in many cases it's not appropriate given the nature of the paper. So if we think that structure would work for you when you submit it, we might suggest some changes, but you'll see they're very different. We do want an abstract. We do want an introduction of some sort, but if it's a policy paper, it wouldn't necessarily have a methods and results. It would have a much more open discussion around the issue. We do publish the abstracts are translated into both Spanish and French. So all the papers are published in English. We have Spanish and French translations, but we also have scope because we have the supplementary online material. What we have done with one paper is publish the entire paper in another language as not in the main journal. It's all in English, but if you, for example, had a paper in Arabic, you had it in English and it's published in the journal in English, and that's the lead paper. But you could have a local language version of the paper on the website to make it accessible to others. You would need to provide that translation. We couldn't undertake that.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Perfect. This is very useful and helping a bigger number of readers to reach the articles. So we have a question online from Serge. What strategy are you going to develop in order to increase the first author from Africa and Asia, where are found the large proportion of protected areas? Yeah, as you mentioned, Mark, less papers from Africa and Asia.
Yeah, so that has been. I mean, we have been working hard with authors that are submitted, that have submitted from that region to get them up to standard. So, just today, for example, I spent a fair bit of the day working on a paper from Nigeria, going back to the authors with suggestions of where and how it needed to be amended to be reach the standard to be published. So we continue to do that as much as we can. Webinars like this, I think, are important. The other thing that we just talked about in our last publications group discussion was the one area we haven't done as good a job as we could is in the outreach and publicising the journal and its material. And so we're going to look for a volunteer from within the Commission to help promote the journal, to make it more visible, to get it into social media and so on. But it is growing. I think as the impact factor goes up, people find it that want to publish in good journals, and so that's, I think, why we're seeing such an increase in the number of papers being submitted, and they're coming from many different areas.
Thank you, Mark. This is very useful, and maybe, as you said, today's webinar is a kind of promoting and encouraging researchers to submit papers to the parks, and hopefully after this webinar we will have a communication and share it via social media and via emails for the university representatives and research institution representatives who couldn't be with us today. Because many people were interested, but maybe the timing is not the correct timing. So we will maybe share a link for this record as well, to help everyone knows more about the Parks Journal. So any last question? It's a 3:07 almost. We finished online. If we have any last question, is okay. If not, we can close.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and I look forward to seeing some great papers coming out of your region, Nizar. Thanks for organising this.
Maybe Mark, we have a question via chat saying. How do we understand the high number of first authors from US and UK during 2020 and 2023?
Yeah, I mean, it's a reflection of where the papers were submitted from. So we don't go soliciting papers. We deal with the papers that are submitted, and that's a reflection of that. It's also a number of the papers were big multi-authored papers that were around things like the Global Biodiversity Framework, where you might have 20 or 30 authors on a paper, and a lot of those come from the the big NGOs, and they tend to be dominated by Europeans and Americans, and hence lots of authors there.
That's great, and I'm sure, Mark, after this webinar and based on my knowledge in the region, there are many research projects are ongoing in protected areas.
Yep.
And all of them can produce high quality papers. And hopefully soon you will get with the editorial team some good papers from the region, as well as maybe we will have some volunteers to help you and the team. We know the huge efforts that you do, and always you express that during our steering committee meetings to really review these papers in a very high quality and produce the issue on time, because producing 2 issues per year, 20 plus papers, sometimes 30 papers, it's not an easy task. Really, Mark is working with a very small team of reviewers and editorial. So here we have many professors. I don't want to name. Please jump in and contact Mark and help in reviewing some of the submitted papers.
Yeah, just to comment on, there's a comment here from Sergey Kamgang about study sites. I would say papers that are purely descriptive and that don't have relevance or broad implications for other places are unlikely to be accepted. So, for example, I've just rejected one paper that was about sort of the geological features in a protected area, and it was just a documentation of the geological features in a geoheritage site, but had no relevance to management. It was like we've got this and we've got this and we've got these features. Those sorts of descriptive papers are unlikely to be accepted. So study sites is good, but make sure you're thinking about what are the implications, what does it tell us about management, how is this relevant to someone who's reading it from somewhere else.
Mark, if we want to brief that, so we need to highlight local experiences with global sound. We need this experiment to support the global network of protected areas and to share that on the global level to be as a lessons learned to support the other protected areas, if we want to be brief on this.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So, Mark, thank you. Some colleagues are asking Alona about the link. For sure, that will be posted with the social media post on WCPA social media and the Schuf Reserve social media. And as well, you can communicate with us. We can share it via email. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Maybe it's 10 p.m. at your place. It's our pleasure to listen to you, Mark, and to congratulate you, and really to encourage who has the capacities to support you in running this huge responsibility to keep the Parks Journal as a pioneering scientific journal related to protected areas. Thank you, everyone.
Lovely. Thank you, Nizar.
Who is not joined the WCPA yet to submit an application, and we will follow it from there. We need more members to be engaged in WCPA in the region, and hopefully to meet in other useful webinars similar to this one. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kamal. And thank you, everyone, for your participation. Take care.